poor people just can't come here because you have to apply for the visa starting from there. If you're from Latin America, $200, $300, and the flight ticket, it's impossible.
There's lots of chatter in Canada about how the immigration system is working, how many people get to come visit, how many people get to go to school in Canada, how many people are applying for immigration. But what we don't talk about is the hundreds of thousands of people who get refused every year for reasons that are unjustifiable.
If I make a mistake in a form, they will deny my form. No questions asked, not trying to fix it for me, not trying to, hey, can you send this again because it was bad? They don't care. You're at paper. Your paper was grown, okay, leave.
You answer the question, the application goes in, the misrepresentation is identified, you're deported.
Getting into the country has its headaches, but there are more from there. Some people just want to work.
I didn't know how the way to be a doctor is difficult. I found that after arriving to Canada.
The larger problem now is getting into the profession in which you've been trained, in which you've been practicing.
This is my favorite job. I would like to continue my job to be a surgeon, but really Canada is like impossible. It's difficult really.
You need doctors. I am a doctor. I have proven skills. I have a long history of being an accredited and recognized physician, and you're making it impossible for me to practice medicine here.
For second-generation immigrants, there can be difficulty finding your individual voice.
Some people, are very stuck in their ways, and they think about you a certain way or have these preconceptions, and in their mind, there's no way that you can change that.
Integration is a complex thing, and it requires a welcoming Canada and an open-minded immigrant applicant in order for it to work. It's work. It's hard work, but it's worthy work. Back then, I just assumed that over time we would progress, and we have progressed, and now we're regressing, and we're going back to a place and a time where people need to be worried. People of color need to be worried. People who wear head coverings or face coverings need to be worried. Jewish people need to be worried. Generally speaking, though, I think that there is a misunderstanding within the Canadian population about the concept of refugees because of who gets depicted to be a refugee on our news television screens.
The word called refugee. Maybe before that 2011, I didn't see really the meaning of this word. You left the country and call you refugee. This really is a hard word. This means you leave everything behind you. You lose everything in your life: home, city, friend, family, job. Yeah, it's really hard word. And you want to find a new place just to be safe for you and your family. My name is Loy Arifai. I came from Syria. I came to Canada 3 years ago. I came to Canada with my family, with my wife and 2 children. The last time I saw my city was 8 years ago, in 2013, when I left my city. Yeah. Exactly, I'm from the south of Syria, a city known as Daraa, border with Jordan. It's a nice city. Yeah. I spent in Jordan about 3 years. It was a really nice country there. I had a lot of friends there also. Yeah, I came from Amman, the capital of Jordan, direct to the Toronto to Canada. Yeah. So I landed in Toronto. After that, I came to the Halifax. In one day, everything was changed. One day. Yeah, when you leave your home, your country, and maybe in the future will not come back again to the city, really, it's hard. I left behind me my family, father, mother, our sister. They lived in my city. When I saw the news, when I saw the TV and the situation in the Middle East and what happened daily for the Syria until now, really it's hard to describe that. The people lose everything just looking for a safe place.
There's a misapprehension. Many people don't want to be a refugee because it's low class. And I explained to them it's got nothing to do with class. It's got to do with, is your life in danger?
Hold on. Before we continue, what is the difference between refugee, immigrant, permanent citizen, temporary citizen, and a citizen?
A refugee is a person who is outside their country of origin, who has a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of their race or their religion or their nationality or their political opinion or their membership in what Canada calls a particular social group. A temporary resident is a person who's here as a visitor, a person who's here as a temporary foreign worker, or a person who's here as a student. But you're temporary, and the expectation is you will leave. And once you leave, your status is over. So when people are immigrants, what they really are permanent residents.
A permanent resident has almost all the same rights as a citizen, but doesn't have the right to vote, to serve in the army or run for elected office.
Once you're a permanent resident, if you qualify, you can then apply for citizenship. Then you need to be a permanent resident first, or you need to be an immigrant first. If you become a citizen, you're no longer a permanent resident, you're no longer an immigrant. You're a citizen of Canada.
An immigrant who gets Canadian citizenship has the full rights of a Canadian citizen.
As a citizen, you can live your life in Canada indefinitely. You can live your life outside of Canada indefinitely and not lose your citizenship status.
Overall, I think immigrants who have a professional background in a regulated profession like physicians, lawyers, all these licensed professions, like they have to be licensed to practice their profession in Canada. They in general actually encounter more challenges because it's not like they could just get a job in the field. They have to get the license first, and sometimes those licensing exams only offered twice a year, and they are designed for someone who designed for a candidate who was educated in Canada, and there might for an immigrant there might be some gaps in their education.
The main obstacle here in Canada to find my real job. I was a physician in my country. I worked there for many years. During the war, I support a lot of people. I finished my medical school in Iran. I spent about 10 years to be a physician. You imagine that, 10 years from my life. I was about 2 years in the hospital as a resident and orthopedic surgeon. This is my favorite job. I would like to continue my job to be surgeon, but really Canada is like impossible. It's difficult really.
Once every 10 days, I will get an email or a call from a person somewhere in the world who's a medical doctor who wants to come to Canada. In the next 3 years, just based on the number of phone calls I would get per year from doctors wanting to come to Nova Scotia, we could come close to solving the doctor shortage.
The process, it takes time, and they need a lot of money. Maybe if the law of the rules here, especially in the medicine, if the small change will happen, will open the doors for a lot of doctors to practice their medicines. There are a lot of newcomers. There's a lot of doctors came to here. They changed their job. They changed their life. They can't practice again here the medicines.
For regulated occupations, they face other difficulties or other challenges, like going through the whole certification process, from writing exams, because the exams even are different in a Canadian environment than their own countries.
Even if they were a trained medical professional in their home country, it can still cost them hundreds of dollars and several years to be able to practice medicine in Canada. But why does this happen?
As for the regulated occupations, it's a different set of barriers because it's not the language at this point. It's more the credential recognition process, going through the certification exams.
A study by Statistics Canada in 2019 found that 35% of working immigrants aged 25 to 64 with a university education are overeducated for their jobs. In the US, only 21% of people in the same position were deemed overeducated for their jobs. 10 years ago, these numbers were 21% for Canada and 18% for the US.
A guy in his 50s says, I've been practicing medicine for 30 years. I'm told by the Nova Scotia College of Physicians that, I essentially have to go back to school. And he said, I will not go back to school at age 55. The banking industry, the finance industry, everybody has identified the need. And the greatest obstacle to filling that need is the very immigration system itself and those who enforce it. The cliche image, and it's an earned cliche, is the doctor or the PhD who's driving a cab. I admire these folks so much.
I usually check online or check the paper and newspaper to find a job, but it takes up about 3-4 months to find a job here. Right now, to support my family, I found a job, or I work as associate in parking lot, sometime to help the customer. Loading something, help the customer. This is the only spot I found it. For the first step in my life here in Canada, it's okay, but I shouldn't to find my job. When I started my job, in the first day, I told myself, what kind of job you choose? You can't find another one it's near to your field, to medicines. I literally was happy to find a new friend, relationship, speaking English. I found the culture of Canadian, how they act together. I went to see a lot of people around of me. That time was good to start the life here in Canada. I found people came from the same country, from my country. Really, in that time, 2-3 years ago, we want to do something useful here. It's good for me, for my community, for the others around us. We founded a society to help my people, me. The people come with me to here to Halifax. For example, we created a small school. I teach the children right now in the school. Right now I have 60 children in school. I teach them our history. As you know, the children lost their life, some of them in the camp. They didn't study at school. Some should we work to raise their information, just to arrive, to become near to the Canadian level. We work in this point. But the only job I found in that time, this is my job right now.
لازم نعرفها. تعرف بأي سنة إجت الشبكة عن كمبوديا؟ متى جت على الدنيا؟ متى انولدت؟
Even when immigrants do find a job and livelihood, they are often the subject of double standards.